What's up, world? Welcome back to another episode of Just Grow It, the podcast. I'm your host, Big City Gardener, and we're still talking about kale. Today, we're going to talk about common pests that affect kale and how to deal with them. Let's get to it. The most common pests that affect kale are cabbage worm and aphids. I despise cabbage worms. If you ever notice any holes in your leaves, 9 times out of 10, you're dealing with the cabbage worm. Cabbage worms are the worst. If you go outside to your garden and you notice holes in your leaves, 9 times out of 10, that's what you're dealing with. The secret to finding cabbage worms is to not look on the top side of the leaf. Flip the kale leaf over and you'll usually find your cabbage worms on the underside of the leaf, hiding out from birds and other predators. If you look on the underside of the leaves and you can't find the cabbage worms, be sure to check down by the base of the plant. The cabbage worms like to hide in any garden debris that you have left on top of your gardening space. That's another reason why you want to make sure you keep your beds clean from all garden debris. If you notice cabbage worms in your garden, then you need to be ready to apply BT spray to the garden. A trick about applying BT spray: most people will apply it once and think that they've taken care of their worm issue. But the truth is, you need to apply BT more than once. BT only works when it is ingested by a full-grown worm. So that means any eggs that you have hidden in your garden are not affected by the BT spray. And to be honest, a lot of the smaller cabbage worms, or even caterpillars for that matter, they're also not affected by the BT spray. It only seems to work on the adults. So you need to apply your BT spray at least 3 times, about 7 days apart. That way, you give the eggs time to hatch and grow into the little worms that'll grow into the big worms that will be affected and killed when we apply the BT spray. Another common pest that you'll see affecting your kale plants are aphids. But to be honest, you usually only get the aphids when your kale has been in the garden for an extremely long time. Aphids are relatively easy to deal with. You can grab your garden hose, turn it to the jet setting, and spray it on the aphids to knock them off the plant. If you notice that you have a heavy infestation, then you can mix Castile soap with water and apply it to your plants to help get rid of those aphids. Another pest that you can encounter when growing kale are slugs. If you've ever transplanted any kale seedlings out into the garden and then you notice that the leaves are completely gone, or that the kale seedling has been eaten at the stem right at the soil line, then 9 times out of 10, you're dealing with slugs. If you notice the slug issue, you can deal with it a few different ways. You can get organic products such as Sluggo and apply them around the base of the plants. You can even put coffee grounds around the base of your plants to help repel the slugs. Or you can set up a beer trap. Pour beer into a shallow dish or a small bowl and bury it. Don't put the beer underneath the soil. Bury the dish in the soil, and that will attract the slugs. The slugs will fall into the beer, drown, and die. Slug problem no more. Now, as far as diseases go, the only real disease that you're going to encounter when growing kale is powdery mildew. And again, that usually happens late in the season after your kale plants have been growing for a long time. Anytime I notice powdery mildew on kale plants, that's usually my cue to go out and transplant new seedlings into the garden. I use it as a friendly reminder. If you're opposed to any sort of sprays, even if they're organic, in your garden, then you need to be prepared to practice trap cropping, companion planting, or apply a row cover over your greens until they are large enough to fend for themselves. Trap crops are plants that we plant in the garden and expect them to be eaten by our pest. We actually want our pest to eat those plants as opposed to the kale or whatever it is that we're growing. That's it for this episode of Just Grow It, the podcast. You know what to do now. Head outside, put some headphones on, turn your favorite song on, put your hands in the soil, and just grow it. Before I let you go, I need you to do more than one thing. First, I need you to like, comment, subscribe to the podcast. Second, I need you to tell a friend or two about the show if you enjoyed it. And if you have anybody you think I need to talk to, I should interview, send the name over, put it in the comments, or send me an email, igrow@bigcitygardener. And check me out, man, on Instagram and on all social media platforms, Big City Gardener. We out. Oh, almost forgot. Just grow it.